Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast for the second time tonight. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, bro?
Yes, mate. Yes, very good. Take two. Some internet problems, hopefully being put to rest. Hopefully we get through this one without any hitches, mate. But yeah, mate, nice to be back. Good to be back in the swing of things. As I said yesterday, for everyone that didn't watch the Condolbia vid, great to have you back, mate. Missed you a lot.
I miss being here, bro. I've missed being here with you. But guys, just two things quickly before we get into this. First of all, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We'd really appreciate it if you guys who are listening to this and aren't subscribed did subscribe. It helps us out more than you could imagine. And finally, before we get into it, we have a word from today's video sponsor. Dan, have you ever wanted an app that collates all the scores and news from your favourite teams in the whole of Europe, Dan? Have you ever wanted that?
Is a constant need of mine, mate, because there's always news. That's the thing, is that we love this game. We love the industry of football because it's ever changing, mate, and you need a place to keep up with it all.
And we have that place exactly for you
sure
guys. It's OneFootball. Guys, this app is genuinely, it's life-changing.
It's great because I use it. So it's great because it's where I pull the stats from for the podcast. So it's like there's all that new stuff as well, but you can track all of the players' stats from like across Europe for all the different leagues, for continental football as well. It's a dream. It's a dream. And the best part, mate, is it's free.
It's free, and guys, it would help support the channel massively if you check that OneFootball using the link in the description down below. We promise you guys won't be disappointed. So guys, if you haven't checked out OneFootball, make sure you do so using the link in the description. I promise when I'm able to be back in Sheffield, we'll record a whole new ad read. It's going to happen. It's just Charlotte's got COVID at the moment. So I'm at my parents' house. I've not got all my equipment. I've got my mic, but ideally we don't want to be doing an ad on the webcam. So we'll get a new one recorded for you. I know how annoying it can be for you guys, but Dan, Leicester City, as we were saying in the previous take and off air, I had this game up on my phone. I watched the first half. Obviously, Leicester go 1-0 up within the first 5 minutes. Chelsea-Arsenal game, obviously much more entertaining on the big screen. And as this was sort of drawing to an end, I was thinking, right, do you know what? It's time. It's Catch Up on Moonlight. I'm going to watch that. We can put this game. This game's gone to bed. And then all of a sudden, 92nd minute, Richarlison has helped Everton sneak a point and really make it look like Everton are going to stay up now. It looks like, Burnley's fate is firmly in our hands, considering we've got 6 points to play for up against Burnley, mate. But obviously we're not talking about Burnley or Everton just yet, mate. Leicester, it's going to be a tough game, mate. Leicester at home for them, of course, obviously on the road today. Harvey Barnes, and I always find myself saying, I don't like giving this guy any credit, but he's an absolute baller, isn't he, mate? And I think it's just because of how the bag he's lauded him as better than Grealish back in the Championship days. But he's a tidy little player, and he scores the goal for the Foxes this evening. And I think ultimately, I think this game, if anything, perfectly summed up how Leicester have been ever since Brendan Rodgers has taken over, really, mate. They look like they're in the driving seat. They look like they're comfortable. We've seen before how a Champions League spot has legitimately been on the cards for them, mate, in previous seasons. And yet they constantly take the foot off the gas. And that's been the story of tonight's game as well, mate. So it's going to be an interesting one on the weekend, isn't it? Because, they've got some big games coming up as well.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there with taking their foot off the gas, because I think Villa fans will be pleased to hear that after conceding that late goal, which you mentioned, to Richarlison and Everton, mate, that's now 26 points Leicester have lost from winning positions this season. And look, the table isn't exactly ugly. They're ninth. They're in the top half. As we'll come on to talk in a couple of minutes, mate, they are in a European semi-final thanks to their win at PSV week on Thursday. They're in a European semi-final. They're ninth in the league. But as I said, 26-point drops from winning positions. If you actually added those 26 points to their current tally of 41, I know that's not exactly how it works, so just give it a bit of context. It would put them third in the league, 4 points clear of Chelsea, and just 10 behind Liverpool. So they've, there's obviously a lot of dialogue about how they've dropped off to this season, and to a certain extent that is true, but it's clear that the performances have been there. All that's lacking is this ability to close out games. And so this has been, if you look at the narrative and the dialogue amongst Leicester fans right now, they're pretty fed up with this. They're missing Jamie Vardy a lot. It looks like Yuri Tielemans isn't going to renew, and he's going to leave in the summer. So, yeah, it seems like changes are really afoot at the King Power, and it will be interesting to see exactly how that goes down. So maybe it's not a bad time to play him.
For sure, and it looks like Vardy, Ndidi, and Ryan Bertrand, mate, who I'm not sure if you knew actually played for Leicester. I think that one took a lot of people by surprise. They're all going to be out on the weekend, and Vardy's the top scorer in the Premier League this season with 10 goals. It's going to be a miss. But if you look at the 11 that started tonight, mate, you've got Schmeichel, Ricardo Pereira, Wesley Fofana, Johnny Evans, Castagne, Mendy, Tielemans, Maddison, Dewsbury Hall. Won't make any more Tory jokes about his name because that triggered too many listeners last time. Harvey Barnes and Kelechi Iheanacho. That's a really strong side on paper, mate, isn't it? And it is a side that I would most certainly be scared of. I think the only weak link per se in that side is going to be Mendy. Sorry, you would expect a Wilfred Ndidi to come in and really elevate that side to a different level because he's a fantastic player. I think there's just this thing with Brendan Rodgers, isn't there, mate? And I think, it's a theme we've seen with all of his sides. I guess you could say maybe except his Celtic side, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, obviously you've seen a bit more SPL than I have, watching like Rangers with Scott at uni and stuff like that. But it happens all the time. This time of the year, they take their foot off the gas. He monumentally bottled the league with Liverpool. And obviously you've got the infamous Gerrard slip and stuff like that, which is, of course, out of his hands. But that was Liverpool's league to lose that year. And they ended up losing it, of course. They lost a bloody a two-legged race to... Who won it that year, 2013? It was Leicester, wasn't it? Was it Leicester?
Leicester was 2016. 2013 was that Man United? Who did it go to after? Because City won it in 2012. Did it go back to United in 2013?
I feel like it may have done. But Liverpool were running away with it that year, man. And we've seen it again with this Leicester side constantly. I think if you look 3 seasons ago, probably should have been nailed on to get fourth, mate. End up missing out.
Well, I mean, just last season they missed out by a point. It looked like for all the world it was going to be on last season as well, but Chelsea picked them at the post and finished got fourth, just 1 point ahead of them. So it could have been last season as well.
Precisely, and I think ultimately, I think this fixture is meaningless when you look at the semi-final that Leicester have coming up. They've got Roma in the Conference League, and I think it would be unfair for me to sit here and say Brendan Rodgers has been a failure because he's won the FA Cup. They won the Community Shield as well, if I'm correct. And so, he's won silverware, and there is a legitimate chance of them winning silverware as well. And of course, finishing top 4 isn't the be-all or end-all, but we've seen Leicester City in the Champions League before. They made it to the round of 16, and that's with that squad that, the season just after they'd won the league. Which was a far worse squad, may I add, as well, to the ones that we've seen since then. I guess, guys, I think this, and you guys are going to think I'm sounding crazy, right? I think this is a winnable game, and purely for the fact that I just don't think that Leicester are that bothered about the Premier League at this point, because if they can win a European competition, that's massive. And I think Conference League winners... do they go straight into the Europa, Dan? Is that how that works?
Europa proper, yeah.
So when you consider their position in the table, it looks like Europa League. It could be anyone from Manchester United or West Ham, but or even Wolves if they kind of get their act together, because they've kind of fell off in recent weeks. But when you're looking at how Leicester can end their season, it's all in on this semi-final, isn't it, mate? Next week.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. An amazing opportunity for them. I think, really quite envious of them, and their away victory at PSV and everything like that is just amazing. And whoever gets through this tie with Roma, and that is so finely balanced. I really can't call that. Roma have been on a really significant upturn, sort of the last couple of months, and that is the other semi-final is Marseille against Feyenoord, and you'd fancy whoever comes out of this game in a sort of one-off game, neutral venue, to beat what is probably going to be Marseille. And even if it is Feyenoord, they've obviously just gone and done one over PSV over 2 legs, so that they've got that. There is a significant chance that whoever comes out this semi-final, as you say, mate, takes that trophy. It's obviously even bigger because it's the inaugural competition, so that there's history made right there, because the first ever winners of this competition straight into the Europa League. And look, Brendan Rodgers does usually bounce back from these quite sticky seasons. You're very right in saying, mate, you only have to look back sort of a few years. If you go back to 2018-19, they finished 9th and then followed it up with 2 5th-place finishes, which obviously there is a slight caveat to that, as we were saying, mate, in that they probably should have been 4th-place finishes. But all things considered, it's a significant improvement. So, you expect him to turn it around, but right now you're absolutely right in saying that all eyes probably are on that Roma game, considering they are having their best form in Europe at the moment. James Maddison is having a season which is going under the radar a little bit. 14 goals now in all comps for Madders, his best ever return for Leicester. What's interesting is that only 2 Englishmen in Europe's top 5 leagues have actually scored more than Maddison this season, and that's Harry Kane and Tammy Abraham. So some pretty esteemed company right there for Maddison. Doesn't really feel like he's getting a lot of hype right now, but he's clearly doing very well for them. 21 goal contributions in his last 26. He seems to really be the danger man right now, especially with Jamie Vardy out, who, as we know, absolutely loves playing against the Villa. So they have got a few players out. I believe Wilfred Ndidi's not there for them either. It looks like they're going to have a few absentees on the day. I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing to be away from Villa Park right now, because it's not the easiest game to go and win. But as you say, mate, if we do go and lose that game, it's not going to be the easiest to play at Villa Park in that kind of atmosphere. But hey, mate, we've you have fond memories of Leicester away, I'm sure, in that season where we all almost got relegated. It was the last game before lockdown, right?
It was indeed. What an awful day. Pepe Reina. I'd resided to the fact that I'd never want to see Pepe Reina play for Aston Villa ever again after he ran out on the halfway line on Harvey Barnes. That was awful. The rain pouring. I think a few Villa players ended up getting COVID, because I think there was 5 Leicester players who had it confirmed the next day. And God, it was a horrible away day, mate. It was horrible. But I think for Villa, what's going to be difficult is that, and we've seen, recently, Maddison's actually been playing. Almost as an inverted winger. He's been playing on this right hand side. Barnes has been on the left, which is where he kind of usually tends to occupy that space. And it really worries me, because these guys are both very good at sort of sitting on the shoulder of the fullback and finding that space in behind. Of course, they've both got explosive pace and just bags and bags of technical ability. Barnes, 4 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League so far this season. And Maddison's, he's got 8 goals and 5 assists so far. Always seems to score against the Villa as well, mate, Maddison. Obviously, being a Cov lad, he absolutely relishes it. And I think, to be fair, mate, we are probably owed something from the last game. I believe it was a draw so far in this season at Villa Park. And then they absolutely humiliated us at home last season as well, during the sort of the lockdown period, which was a really tough pill to swallow. Because there's almost this forged rivalry, isn't there, between Sky, I guess, because there's not too many teams too local to us, and they kind of bill it as a Midlands derby, when in actual fact it's a game that means absolutely nothing unless you're James Maddison. But when you're looking at Barnes and Maddison, mate, how important is it that we get a really solid performance from the likes of Cash. And I'm going to go with Ashley Young, even though we've seen Dean train. It looks unlikely given the fact that he'd been in a sling for a few weeks as well. We're going to have to see a much more conservative performance from our fullbacks, I think, because otherwise Leicester are just going to pick us off at ease, aren't they, mate?
Yeah, it's, the wings are the real threat, honestly. With Barnes and Maddison. You imagine, if it is Young playing at left back, then, someone like Maddison can, maybe not so much for pace, but, it's not an easy matchup for Ashley. But, Cash has got his work cut out with Harvey Barnes. You're absolutely right, mate. I think it's a very, as you say, mate, it's a very decent side on paper. There's still a lot of good names there. So you definitely can't write it off. There isn't the depth right now. That's the thing, is that, whilst they can put a decent 11 together, there isn't the subs bench that they can turn to. I think it's important to note that, it's going to be difficult to go and get a clean sheet. I'll say that. I don't expect to be coming away on Saturday having conceded nothing. But what I will say is, as you say, mate, when you look at the amount of leads they've thrown away and the amount of points that they've dropped from winning positions, we can't be discouraged if we do go a goal down, because, or, if we do fall behind at any point in the game, because Leicester have shown time and time again this season that they don't like being in winning situations. They like to be the side on the ascendancy. It showed in that away win against PSV. They like to be the side that comes back. They went 1-0 down in that game, roared back to win 2-1. So it's one of those where we can't be too disheartened if we do go a goal down, because this side does give you opportunities in those situations.
Absolutely. And it was a 2-1 win. If my memory serves me right, actually, last time we played them in December, should have been 3-1 when you consider the Jacob Ramsey goal that was disallowed for the absolutely scandalous foul, with air quotes, on Schmeichel in goal. And if anything, what that game highlighted, Dan, was their serious inability to defend set pieces. Ezri Konsa bagging a brace in that game for himself. And that's going to be really important. That's something where I think people on the outside look and go, Villa have scored, I think it's maybe 12 goals this season from set players. I think you and I, Dan, and certainly the listeners, feel like we could have scored so many more considering the sheer volume of set plays that we've had throughout the season. So hopefully that's something that can be worked on. And I guess the Konsa goal chat, mate, kind of leads us in nicely to the sort of the selection dilemma I think we have, because I think it's fair to say, Dan, Ezri Konsa isn't having a brilliant time and hasn't been for a little while. And I was having this conversation actually with a few mates earlier about Konsa, because I remember, I think it's probably about 6 months ago, Jamie Carragher, he stuck his neck out and says, I don't really get the Ezri Konsa hype. I see somebody who throws his arms in the air every time Villa concedes. He's always pinning the blame on other people. And I'm not being a revisionist here at all, because I do think Ezri Konsa has been relatively solid since football came back, really, from the lockdown. I think ever since he moved back from right back to centre half, I think he's been fantastic. But I think Jamie Carragher was maybe onto something, mate. And I would trust Jamie to spot these things in the centre half a lot better than I can, and you can, mate. It almost feels like this is a game that I think Callum Chambers has to start, or he's feeling fairly aggrieved, mate.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. I think, it's easy when there's been a little bit of a break, that you sort of forget about these things and you go back to old faithful. Do you know what I mean? It almost feels like you sort of come away from an international and form isn't as hot as an agenda as it is right now. The defeat doesn't feel it. So it's easy to sort of go on, we'll throw it in, because that defeat feels so long ago now that, it's easy to revert back to what feels the norm. But yeah, man, I've got to make changes. We have to try something new. We can't just, go back to what's tried and tested, because we've done it before, and as I said, there's been that break. So Yeah, it'd be interesting. Marv, mate, he's back.
He is.
Does he come in?
It's a tough one. He featured in our under 23s 2-1 defeat at Stoke, didn't he? Which is good to see him get the minutes, but it's someone you got to manage again. I'm sick to death of his Russian players back, mate. But Marv is somebody who, again, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But at the time, Dan, I mean, to be fair, I think we're in a minority, Dan, where for the longest time we have been calling to see Marv. I think it's, there was a point when Dino was in charge where in the lockdown season, Villa hadn't conceded a single goal or lost a game when Marvelous Nakamba was on the pitch. And I feel like there's of course, there's attributes of his game that can be improved, like the range of passing and, people can pull up passing accuracy stats. And I know Villa have tweeted a fair few of them, almost as like silence the haters. But when you're playing 5-yard passes, I expect almost 100% pass completion rate. You want to see him progress the ball a bit better. And I think that is the criticism of Marv, which I'll happily, take my hat off to. I think, I would like to see him pass the ball further than 10 yards. I think he would as well. But he's the guy, he's there, he's available. And more often than not, he actually has a man around him. So, you don't always need to make the 20, 30 yard passes that we see Dougie or Sanson or whoever attempts. I feel like it may come too soon, but if we were to get 45 minutes of Marv at the King Power, I'd be a very happy man, mate.
Oh, mate, 100%. 100%. I think Marv, there's a player that knows his game. I think there's, players, very reputable players have made very good careers off winning the ball, recycling it, simple pass, lay it off. You know
Jorginho.
what I mean? Yeah, exactly. It's like, mate, there are players that do that. I mean, we'd all like to see Marv play 30, 40-yard raking passes, but just, there's something to be said in this Villa team right now for someone that can come in and knows the role and can do it well. I think, yes, Marv isn't a perfect player, but he's a brilliant option. He's shown he can be fantastic this season. I would really like to see him. I'm really interested to see exactly where he is. Fitness-wise, I don't necessarily think it's the right idea to start him in this one because you don't want to pin all hopes on someone that hasn't played football in the longest time. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see, but we definitely do miss his presence. It's going to be a very appealing option to sort of go back to him and try him in that midfield. So it'll be really interesting, mate. Be really interesting to see how Stevie lines up for this one. I'm desperate to see Buendia, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm really expecting, I think next season he'll get a run and I think he'll really impress. And I think it would be good to start building up that momentum now because I definitely expect some changes in that front line. I expect some outgoings, some perhaps sooner than we'd imagined. But Emmy's one I think will stick around. I don't think he's missed a beat at points this season. I do want to see him come back because I think he could be really key in this game as well. I think it's a game that really suits him. I think we're going to have to be quite clever in how we approach Leicester and how we try to unpick them. And I think he could be very useful in that regard. So, yeah, that's my take, mate, is that if I want to see anyone, I think I want to see him Buendia.
For sure. And when you consider who could play as well with the semi-final this close, it could be a lot to ask of Johnny Evans to play 2 games in such a short period of time. I know they're not fans of Yannick Vestergaard as well, but I think if he was to play, that would be absolutely fantastic. And you've, of course, got someone like Daniel Amati who has slotted in at centre-half throughout his career at Leicester. So the selection gods may favour Villa in this game, Dan. I'm not going to ask you for a score prediction, so I think that's cruel. But I'm going to ask the listeners, let us know in the comments down below how you're feeling about this one. I wouldn't blame you if you're not feeling confident at all. Maybe our confidence is coming from pure delusion. But Villa have to win a game before the end of the season, Dan, surely.
Yeah, and it's going to be this, mate. We can hope. We can hope that's about all we can do. We've then got Norwich at home, man. So guys, if it's not coming this week, then surely to God it's coming the week after.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, let's go with it, mate. Let's be positive. Beacon of hopes in the Villa sphere here on the Villa Fail podcast. So we've got to live up to our billing, right, mate?
Of course. So guys, let us know your predictions in the comments below. make sure you download OneFootball and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a podcast from us here at Heart of the Villa.